we are devastated about the killing of 17-year-old U.S. citizen Tawfiq Abdel-Jabbar in the West Bank. We continue to engage closely with the government of Israel to ascertain as much information as possible.
As you know, we've asked the government of Israel to investigate, and it's our assessment that they're taking this seriously and they are looking into what occurred so as to avoid tragedies like this from happening again. We're not giving them a deadline. I mean, obviously, we want to see as many answers as soon as possible. First of all, there's an investigation going on. So why don't we let it get done? And why don't we see what they find in terms of the decision-making process that led to this terrible outcome?
We think this does need to be thoroughly investigated, but in terms of the modality, we continue to want to see some additional information from the government of Israel before we make other assessments.
The IDF is continuing to investigate this matter and has promised that its investigation will be swift, comprehensive, and transparent. We will be watching those results closely.
You guys saw this, right? Israel closed 88% of their own investigations into their alleged war crimes and abuses by their Israeli occupation forces in Gaza and the West Bank, without finding any wrongdoing or filing any charges. Close to 90% of everything we have witnessed for the past 22 months, Israel has deemed as completely fine and lawful. Just so you understand, 88% of the entirety of Gaza has been completely destroyed by Israel. And they are saying all of this is lawful. And keep in mind, that's only the cases that they let pass through for investigation, where many are just tossed away and deemed not valid for investigation. Do you understand what close to 90% means? I'm going to list out just a handful of things Israel has done that have been reported as irrefutable fact. January 2024, 5-year-old girl, Hind Rajab, was killed in a car via 355 bullets, alongside several family members who were killed as well by Israel. February 2024, the Flour Massacre, where Israel killed 112 Palestinians as they were waiting for flour. April 2024, Israel killed 7 aid workers from the World Central Kitchen. April 2024, Gaza surgeon Adnan al-Bush was raped and killed in an Israeli torture facility. May 2024, Israel killed 45 Palestinian civilians via airstrike on the Rafah tent camp, where we watched Palestinians burning alive on camera. May 2024, Palestinian convert to Judaism was shot and killed by an IOF soldier in the West Bank. June 2024, Israel killed 31 Palestinian civilians at a Rafah aid distribution center. July 2024, Israeli occupation forces sent dogs to attack and kill 24-year-old Palestinian with Down syndrome, Mohammed Bahar. April 2025, a minor, 17-year-old high schooler, Walid Ahmed, was killed while being held in Israeli detention center. Just 2 days ago, 20-year-old Ahmed Tazaza, held by Israel without charge or trial, was killed while in their custody. In fact, 76 Palestinians since October of 2023 have been killed while in Israeli custody. In fact, over 18,000 Palestinians have been taken hostage by Israel just the past 22 months, a majority without a single charge or trial date, and many of which are children. A record number of home demolitions are happening in the West Bank as we speak, where 783 Palestinian homes and counting have been demolished by Israel with no probable cause aside from Israeli expansion and annexation of the West Bank, which the Israeli Knesset just voted to approve. The Israeli military is seen on camera protecting Israeli settlers, terrorizing, killing, and stealing the homes of Palestinians. Israeli military is seen on camera looting the homes of Palestinians they've killed and displaced, proudly wearing the underwear of Palestinian women they've killed and displaced. And then there's the Americans Israel has killed. 20-year-old from Florida, Saifullah Musaleh, who was beaten to death last week by Israeli settlers. 78-year-old from Milwaukee, Omar Assad, was stopped at an Israeli checkpoint, dragged out of his car, handcuffed, gagged, and blindfolded, and then they left him to die at a cold construction site. And we all know world-renowned Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, killed by an Israeli soldier, where Israel lied saying it was a Palestinian that killed her, then admitted that they made a mistake, to then see the Israeli occupation forces attack the pallbearers that are literally holding her coffin at her funeral. 17-year-old Tawfiq Ajak of Louisiana was driving a truck with his friends, and Israelis sprayed the vehicle with bullets and killed him. U.S.-Canadian dual citizen Jacob Flickinger was killed by Israel while working with the World Central Aid Kitchen in Gaza. 26-year-old Turkish-American volunteer Aysenur Egi was shot and killed by an Israeli soldier. Lebanese-American from Michigan, Kamal Jawad, was killed via an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon. 14-year-old from New Jersey, Amir Rabia, was shot and killed by the IOF while being called a terrorist. There is literally footage and eyewitness testimony from Americans that worked at these GHF sites saying Israel is killing starving Palestinians, including children, while they are seeking food. We are literally watching them as they spray bullets all over the people seeking aid. There is literal aerial footage of Israel bombing unarmed civilians just walking, many of which were just walking with flour or aid in their arms to take back to their families. There is literal footage of an elderly Palestinian grandmother walking her grandchild, carrying a white flag, getting shot and killed by an Israeli sniper. Israel bombed and besieged every single hospital in Gaza. 36 hospitals. Israel destroyed over 80% of mosques and 3 churches in Gaza, killing Christians and Muslims. The number of UN-specific aid workers killed by Israel in Gaza is the highest in UN history. At least 412 aid workers have been killed in Gaza since October of 2023. This includes 280 UNRWA staff and 34 PRCS staff. This figure represents the highest staff death toll in UN history, with 1 out of every 50 UNRWA employees killed by Israel. Israel has killed 228 journalists. Israel has killed over 1,500 healthcare workers. And not that we needed BBC to tell us this, considering several doctors have been sounding this alarm for over a year now, but BBC just reported that the IOF shot 95 children in the head or chest out of 160 examined cases. 95 Palestinian children were precisely targeted and shot in the head or chest by an Israeli sniper, meaning using Israel's 88% of cases being closed as no wrongdoing. 81 of those children whom were killed by the IOF would be deemed as killed lawfully, with the rest still being investigated by the same murderers doing the killing. Israel killed 15 Palestinian emergency workers in one night and then lied about it when it was all on camera, to which they then retracted their statements and called it a mistake again. And that is exactly what they do. They never admit guilt. It was always a mistake or an error. Children in Gaza killed in an Israeli airstrike. Error. Deadly Gaza church bombing by Israel. Mistake. Murders of 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers by Israel. Mistake. Israel executing 15 emergency workers in Gaza. Mistake. Israel's tent massacre in Rafah. Mishap. Israel killing aid workers. Mistake. Israeli airstrike kills 6 children. Technical error. Israel kills 3 of their own hostages. Mistake. Palestinians burning alive via Israeli bombing of tents. Mistake. At least 600,000 Palestinians within the span of 22 months have been murdered by Israel, with 70% being women and children. Are you telling me those are 600,000 mistakes? Where 88% of that 600,000, which is 528,000 murders, are cases that would be deemed as valid and lawful? And now, Netanyahu just announced the complete military annexation of the entirety of Gaza, while the terrorist Israeli settlers are waiting and salivating at the Gaza border to go steal their land. You calling that a mistake? You even have Western media following Israel's footsteps, saying that their biased coverage on this genocide was a possible mistake. And here's the thing. Israel closed 88% of their own cases against them, all of which deemed Israel as being innocent. This means the remaining 12% are still open cases. This shit is not new. An Israeli human rights group, which is an oxymoron in its own right, but I'll let it slide here, Yesh Din, confirmed that of 664 inquiries into the IOF, linked to previous Gaza operations between 2014 and 2021. That's 8 years of brutality in Gaza. Only 1 led to a prosecution. That's 0.1% of all accusations against the IOF that were prosecuted. NPR did an investigation and found that among 1,260 complaints regarding Israeli soldiers harming Palestinians and their property between 2017 and 2021, only 11 resulted in indictments. That's fewer than 1% of all complaints. Another human rights group, B'Tselem, who made it their mission to collect years' worth of evidence to give the IOF everything they need for their self-investigations and to prosecute all credible allegations of crime, said that they rarely saw any of its cases move past the initial investigative stage. They said, and I quote, "We did that for many years and ultimately reached the conclusion that it was pointless and that regardless of what we did, there was always the same result. No accountability." Because of this, B'Tselem stopped referring cases to Israel's military altogether in 2016. They said, and I quote, "We reached the conclusion that continuing to refer cases to the Israeli investigative bodies is not only counterproductive because it does not obtain any real accountability, but it also gives them the veneer of a functioning system. Their whole justice system is a lie. It's a sham, meant to further exacerbate the occupation and apartheid system currently in place and has been in place for over 77 years. B'Tselem continues to collect evidence when Israeli soldiers kill or injure Palestinians, but instead of referring the evidence to Israel's military to investigate themselves, the group now publicizes it on social media and through the free press. That's why you see endless war crimes being reported with zero accountability, which leads to total impunity for Israel. So the next time any of you allied spokespeople of the Wicked West, including the US, UK, Canada, France, Germany, and the rest of you Western cucks, even utter the words, the Israeli military is investigating, just know that you personally will go down in history as an accomplice to a full-scale Holocaust. And if justice isn't served for you in this lifetime for dancing with the devil, just know that you'll be dancing your way right down to hell, hand in hand with that devil, with Hitler himself, greeting you into your endless torment.